Hello everybody, today we are going to start with a new chapter, cell, its structure and function. We see a lot of living organisms around us. All the living organisms, they are made up of cells. There are two types of living organisms, unicellular and multicellular. Unicellular organisms are made up of one cell and multicellular organisms, they are made up of many cells. So cell is what? It is the structural and most basic unit of an organism. You can say that just like a wall it is made up of bricks, in the same way an organism is made up of cells. So all the cells, they assemble together to form an organism. There is one single cell, it gives rise to tissue. Tissue is a collection of cells. A collection of tissues forms an organ, and a collection of organs forms an organ system, and a collection of organ systems forms an organism. For Cells are of many shapes and sizes. First of all, we are going to see the variation in number. So there are two types of organisms. One is unicellular organisms and another is multicellular organisms. In unicellular organisms like amoeba, paramecium, euglena and bacteria, the organism is composed of only a single cell, and this single cell is responsible for carrying out all the functions of feeding, movement, respiration and reproduction. Whereas if you look at organisms having multicellular bodies like plants, animals, including human beings, they are made up of many cells. Now we come to different shapes. There are many shapes of cells. It can be disc-shaped, polygonal, rectangular, branched or even irregular. The shape of the cell, it depends on the function that it has to perform. Say for example, if it is a nerve cell, look at the diagram. It has to carry messages between different parts of the body, so it is elongated in shape. If you look at muscle cell, it is responsible for carrying out movement by contraction and expansion, so it is thin and long. If you look at skin cells, they cover a large area, so they are flat and expanded. Now let's see the variation in size of the cell. Almost all the cells, they are microscopic and they cannot be seen with the naked eye. The size of the cell can vary from a micrometer to a few centimeters. The smallest cell is of the bacteria, which generally ranges from 0.1 to 0.5 micrometer. And the largest cell is the egg of an ostrich, that is, it is 170 millimeter in diameter. So this is very important for your exam. This can be asked, the smallest cell and the largest cell. And the human nerve cells, they are considered to be the longest. Let us now see who discovered cell and when. Robert Hooke discovered cell in 1664. He was an Englishman. While he was examining a slice of cork under a microscope. Cork is the bark of a tree. Hooke observed that this slice of cork is made up of tiny honeycomb-like compartments that are arranged one on top of the other. He named these compartments to be cells. After that, scientists, they discovered that all the living organisms, they are made up of cells. Today, the cell theory that we are following, it was proposed by two German scientists, Sheldon and Schwann. According to this theory, all the organisms are made up of one or more cells. If it is unicellular, then one cell, and if it is multicellular, then many cells. And the next point is, all the cells, they arise from pre-existing cells. Irrespective of the size of the organism, this cell theory is applicable to each and every organism in the world. Now that we have understood that all the living organisms are made up of cells, we are now going to see the structure of cell. Let us first study about the cell membrane. Cell membrane is the outermost covering of the cell. It is responsible for holding all the contents of the cell, and it is also responsible for separating one cell from the other. This is a porous membrane through which selected substances can enter or leave. This is known as selectively permeable. It means it is going to allow the entry of some substances and others it will not allow. Just like when we filter out the tea. So it is going to allow the liquid part into the cup, whereas the tea leaves are going to remain in the strainer. In the same way, this cell membrane allows the entry of some of the substances and restricts the entry of other substances. So it is known as selectively permeable. This cell membrane is also known as the plasma membrane. Cytoplasm. It is a jelly-like fluid that fills up the part of the cell between the cell membrane and the nucleus. Several cell organelles are embedded in the cytoplasm. Nucleus. It is known as the brain of the cell. Nucleus is surrounded by a membrane that is called the nuclear membrane, and it is filled with a semi-solid substance that is known as the nucleoplasm. Several thread-like structures which are called chromosomes are present in the nucleoplasm. These chromosomes, they carry genes which transfer the characteristics of one cell to new cells that are formed during cell division. And also, inside the nucleus there is a nucleolus which contains a network of fibrous material called chromatin fibers. Now that we have seen that all the living organisms are made up of cells and the basic structure of a cell consists of three things: the cell membrane, cytoplasm, and the nucleus, we are now going to study about the other cell organelles. The first one is the Golgi apparatus or the Golgi bodies. These are made up of tubules, it means long tube-like structures. Vesicles, it means small vessels are there, and vacuoles, and the function is to secrete, it means to produce certain chemical substances like enzymes, hormones, and proteins. Vacuoles. Whenever we have a space that is filled with fluid and this space gets enclosed by a membrane, it is known as a vacuole. The function is to store excess water, useful minerals, pigments, and many other substances. Lysosomes. Lysosomes contain a variety of chemical substances that are known as enzymes. These enzymes are capable of digesting cells and a variety of other intra and extracellular materials whenever the need arises. In case of emergency, lysozymes burst away and destroy the cells. That is why they are also known as suicide bags of cell. This is a very important question and it is very likely that you will be asked this in your exam. Endoplasmic reticulum. It is a network of tubules and channels and is involved in the synthesis, storage, and transport of cell products. The function of endoplasmic reticulum is very frequently asked in the exam. You will have to write that they are responsible for synthesizing, storage, and transportation of cell products. Ribosomes. These are granular and they are scattered in the cytoplasm. They act as the site of protein synthesis. Centrosome. This structure is present only in animal cells. Very important. You will be asked in the exam that which are the structures that are present in animal cells but they are absent in plant cells. You will have to write centrosome is one structure. The main function of centrosomes is to initiate and regulate cell division. Now comes plastids. Plastids are present only in plant cells. This is a very important cell organelle that is present only in plant cells and it is absent in animal cells. Plastids contain certain pigments that have a specific role to play in the functioning of the plant. Depending on the type of color or the pigment that is present in plastids, plastids are of three types. Again, question can be asked, what are the three types of plastids? You will have to write there are three types of plastids. One is chloroplast, another is chromoplast, and the third one is leucoplast. The function of chloroplast is that they contain chlorophyll that helps in the synthesis of food, or you can also say that it helps in the process of photosynthesis. Next is chromoplast. These contain all the non-green pigments and they are responsible for providing color to flowers and fruits. Leucoplasts are colorless and store food in the form of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Now, most important, mitochondria. These are tiny spherical or rod-shaped bodies. They act as sites of energy production and are therefore called the powerhouses of cell. Very likely that this question will be there in your exam. Name the cell organelle that is known as the powerhouses of cell. You will have to write mitochondria. Why? Because they are the site of energy production. There are some differences between a plant cell and an animal cell. Look at the diagram. A plant cell, it consists of an additional layer that is known as the cell wall. So cell wall is present in plant cell whereas it is absent in an animal cell. Cytoplasm of the plant cell is not as dense as in animal cell. Whereas if you look at the animal cell, the cytoplasm is quite dense. A large vacuole is present in plant cell but vacuoles are generally absent in animal cells. Even if they are present, they are very small in size. In a plant cell, plastids are usually present, but in animal cells, plastids are always absent. Centrosome is absent in plant cell, whereas centrosome is always present in an animal cell. There are two types of cells. One is prokaryotic and another is eukaryotic. The prokaryotic cell, it does not have a well-defined nucleus surrounded by a nuclear membrane. Pro, it means primitive, it means that is not advanced, and karyon, it means nucleus. So that is why we say that these are prokaryotic cells, it means not advanced or primitive type of cells. The organisms that have prokaryotic cell, they are known as prokaryotes. For example, we have certain bacteria, blue-green algae. But on the other hand, if you look at eukaryotic cells, they have a well-defined nucleus, and the nucleus, it has a nuclear membrane. These are known as eukaryotic cells, and the organisms that have eukaryotic cells are known as eukaryotes. Eu, it means true, and karyon, it means nucleus. For example, all the organisms other than bacteria, blue-green algae, and viruses, they are all eukaryotes. Now we studied in the cell theory that the new cells, they are formed because of the pre-existing cells. So this is what is the basis of cell division and growth. The food that we eat, it is responsible for increasing in size and number of cells. But after reaching a certain size, the cell, it divides into two by a process that is known as cell division. Increase in the number of cells in the body as a result of cell division is responsible for growth in organisms. Cell division also replaces the dead or damaged cells with new ones and is thus responsible for healing of wounds.